She looked me dead in the eye and said, "I'm going to date other people, but don't you dare move on. I might come back." That was it. The switch flipped. I blocked her everywhere. No warning. No grand speech. Just, gone. And now? She's in full-blown panic mode because the backup plan she thought she had evaporated overnight. 3 years with Brooke had felt like building something real. You know, the kind of relationship where you don't just talk about dinner plans, you talk about mortgages, savings, and whether the guest room should have a fold-out couch or a proper bed. That was us. I'm Nathan, 29, senior accountant at a mid-sized firm. The guy who makes spreadsheets for fun. Yeah, I'm that dude who actually gets excited about comparing mortgage rates and mapping out weekend trips 6 months in advance. When Brooke and I first met, she was working as a marketing coordinator at a small local agency. She loved it, planning campaigns for mom-and-pop restaurants, community events, charity drives. She was grounded, warm, and excited about making a difference. But then came Zenith Creative. This glossy, high-rise agency downtown, dripping with luxury accounts and startup money. Within 2 weeks of landing the job, Brooke wasn't the same person. Gone were the cardigans and flats, suddenly it was crop tops, designer jeans, and networking dinners that looked a lot like parties. And it wasn't just her closet that changed, her language did, too. Phrases like authentic brand experience and disruptive creative solutions started slipping into dinner conversations. But the thing that stung? The way she started talking about us. Like we were outdated software, something reliable, but obsolete. She'd scroll through her coworkers' Instagram stories, showing me boozy brunches and Napa Valley getaways, sighing, "Everyone at work is so free-spirited. They don't limit themselves to just one person forever." At first, I thought it was just new job excitement. Culture shock. Something she'd grow out of. I was wrong. Her comments got sharper, more pointed. Suddenly, monogamy was outdated. Marriage? Restricting personal growth. And when I suggested we look at condos or plan a quick weekend away, she'd roll her eyes and say, "God, Nathan, you're always planning something. Can't we just see where life takes us?" Turns out, life was taking her straight into Derek Morrison's orbit, her new boss. Derek was 34, divorced, the kind of guy who drove a Tesla and wore sneakers that cost more than my entire suit collection. He had that whole entrepreneur disruptor vibe. The type who thought brunch was a lifestyle and dating was a sport. Brooke would come home glowing, rambling about his philosophies, his networking hacks, his spontaneous weekends with a crew of equally shiny, Instagram-perfect friends. One night, while I was comparing high-yield savings accounts, she casually dropped, "Derek says people who settle down too young miss out on discovering who they really are." I looked up from my laptop. "What do you think about that?" She hesitated, then shrugged. "I think, maybe he has a point." My stomach sank, but I buried it. Went back to my spreadsheets. Pretended I didn't feel the floor shifting. 3 months into her new job, she came home with that look. You know the look, the one where you already know something's about to detonate. She sat at the kitchen table, the same one where we'd planned our future, and said the words that made everything unravel, "We need to talk." I closed my laptop. "Okay. What's going on?" Her voice was steady, rehearsed. "I think we should explore being more open." I asked, even though I already knew. "Open how?" "I want to date around. Experience life with different people. See what's out there before we make permanent decisions." It was like she'd been practicing in the mirror. I pushed back, desperate. "What about us? What about the 3 years we've built together?" "We can still be us," she said, "just not exclusively. You could date other people too." But the way she said it? Like she already knew I wouldn't. Like she expected me to sit quietly, waiting, while she explored options. Then came the dagger. I need to figure out who I am outside of being Nathan's girlfriend. This job has opened my eyes. So I asked the question I didn't want to ask. Is there someone specific? Her pause said everything. "Derek and I have great chemistry. He's been encouraging me to expand my horizons." I couldn't believe it. My girlfriend was quoting her boss about why our relationship was holding her back. I pulled out her phone, she'd left it unlocked on the counter, and scrolled. Late-night texts. 6 weeks worth. Complaints about me being boring. Derek telling her she was wasting her prime years. Conversations comparing my limitations to his spontaneity. I looked up. Career development? Is that what we're calling this? Her face drained of color. She stammered, "Nathan, I can explain." But I was done listening. That night, when she left to clear her head at her friend Ashley's place, I did something I'd never done before. I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I vanished. I blocked her everywhere, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, even Venmo, where she'd been sending me requests for coffee that was probably just her dates with Derek. I flipped every account to private. Cleared 3 years of photos like hitting delete on corrupted files. And the final nail? I blocked her number. Nuclear, yeah, but necessary. By morning, Brooke couldn't see me, couldn't reach me, couldn't even check if I'd reacted. She wanted freedom? She could have it. Just not with me as her safety net. The panic set in faster than I could have imagined, within 12 hours. And honestly, watching it unfold from the sidelines was spectacular. My roommate Jake was the first to notice. He told me Brooke actually called our landline, a phone she had ignored for 3 solid years. Her voice cracked through the voicemail, frantic, asking if I was okay, wondering why I wasn't answering her messages. Then came the flood, calls from unknown numbers, new Instagram accounts created just to spy on my stories, even LinkedIn messages to my coworkers asking if I was going through something. It was equal parts pathetic and surreal. By the second day, things had escalated into what anyone else would call stalking. That's when Ashley, her best friend, who I barely knew beyond polite small talk, called me directly. "Hey, Nathan, Brooke's really worried about you. She thinks maybe you had some kind of breakdown since you blocked her everywhere." I almost laughed out loud at the projection. "I'm fine, Ashley. Just moving on, like she suggested." Ashley hesitated. "Moving on? But you guys are just on a break, right?" That's what she told everyone, that you needed space. And there it was. Brooke, spinning the narrative. She wasn't telling people she wanted to test drive her boss while keeping me as her safety net. No, in her version, we were on a thoughtful break while I supposedly reflected. I cut Ashley off gently. "We're not on a break. She wanted to date around. I'm just giving her what she asked for, freedom. I've removed myself from the equation." Silence. Then Ashley whispered, "That's not what she said." The truth was slipping through her fingers, and she couldn't control it anymore. By Thursday night, I was at the gym when she showed up. And let me be clear, Brooke despises gyms. The only time she'd touched a treadmill was back in college sorority days when it was mandatory. Yet there she was, drowning in brand new workout gear, tags practically still dangling, fumbling around with equipment like she was auditioning for a parody video. I spotted her out of the corner of my eye, waving like she just happened to be there. I didn't even break stride. Grabbed my bag mid-set and slipped out the back exit. Later, the front desk staff told me she'd actually asked about my membership schedule. They shut her down, told her non-members don't get that info. I could practically picture her grinding her teeth in frustration. Meanwhile, at work, the gossip train rolled in through Tony, my cubicle neighbor, also known as the unofficial newswire of our entire office. Over lunch he smirked and said, "Your ex is having a catastrophic week." Apparently, Derek, the oh-so-enlightened boss she'd been risking it all for, had gotten what he wanted. Once Brooke was fully hooked, he dropped her cold and moved on to the next shiny distraction. This time, a fresh-faced intern. Brooke had convinced herself she was special. That Derek saw her as partner material. Nope. She was just a pit stop. A fling. Disposable. The fallout at her agency was pure chaos. Tony's girlfriend, who worked there, said Brooke had been parading around, bragging about her evolution and authentic connections. But when Derek publicly brushed her off, it became office entertainment. She actually confronted him in front of everyone. Asked about their future. His response? A shrug and, "I thought we were just having fun." Absolutely brutal. Her grand exploration was unraveling faster than a cheap sweater. Within 2 weeks, even her new, free-spirited friends were avoiding her. The drama was exhausting. The desperation peaked when she showed up at my apartment building, demanding access like she still had a claim. Security called me at work. "There's a woman here claiming to be your girlfriend. Says there's been a misunderstanding." "She's not my girlfriend," I said flatly. "Please ask her to leave." That night, I found 17 missed calls from random numbers. I deleted the voicemails without listening. Her last play came through Mike, a mutual friend. He cornered me one night and said, "Dude, Brooke's freaking out. She says you disappeared and won't talk to her. What happened?" I told him the short version. She wanted to date around. I let her. That's it. Mike blinked, confused. "But she said you guys were just on a break. That you needed space. She can say whatever helps her sleep at night. We're done." 3 weeks later, the full story trickled back through the grapevine. Derek had moved on without a second thought. Brooke's reputation at work was shot after her public meltdown. And her so-called bold exploration? It left her with nothing. No Derek. No friends willing to babysit the drama. And no way back to the stability she threw away. All because she thought I'd sit around waiting. While Brooke was busy learning the hard way that her glamorous new life wasn't what she'd imagined, I was quietly discovering something I didn't even know I'd been starving for: peace. The first week without her felt like peeling off shoes 2 sizes too small after a marathon. My shoulders dropped. My chest felt lighter. No more walking on eggshells, waiting for her next crisis to explode. No more budget meetings where investment pieces magically drained our savings. No more nights listening to her obsess over coworkers' Instagram stories like they were sacred texts. For the first time in years, the noise was gone. I booked a session with Dr. Martinez, a therapist I'd been wanting to see for months but never had time for, because Brooke always said therapy was for people too weak to handle their problems. By the 3rd session, Dr. Martinez leaned back in her chair, looked me dead in the eye, and asked, "Nathan, when was the last time you focused on your own needs and goals?" I froze. I couldn't even answer. Because the truth? I couldn't remember. She laid it out plainly. I'd been Brooke's emotional support system, financial manager, and crisis counselor rolled into one. And I'd accepted that as normal. Meanwhile, Tony, my office's unofficial gossip wire, kept me updated on Brooke's freefall. His girlfriend worked at Zenith, which meant I got front row seats to the drama without even buying a ticket. Apparently, Derek, the visionary boss she risked it all for, had completely ghosted her. After she started showing up at his office uninvited, sending him essay-length texts, even cornering coworkers to ask about his weekend plans, the guy got HR involved. HR. She's gone full Fatal Attraction, Tony chuckled one afternoon. Parking outside his building. Following him to lunch. Showing up at his gym. Dude had to file reports. The irony? Delicious. The same woman who called me boring and clingy had turned into the most clingy person alive, for a man who didn't even see her as worth a weekend. Her obsession started wrecking her work. She missed client meetings, showed up late, spent office hours typing desperate texts Derek never answered. Zenith cut her down fast, no more luxury accounts, no million-dollar penthouses. Suddenly, Brooke was running the Instagram for a pet grooming chain. From champagne parties to dog haircuts. Brutal. But while she spiraled, my life bloomed. I joined a hiking club through work. Something I'd always wanted, but Brooke dismissed as sweaty and boring. Turns out, fresh mountain air and people who didn't check Instagram every 5 minutes? That's the stuff? Saturday mornings on trails felt better than any overpriced brunch. I started calling old friends again, the ones I'd drifted from during my Brooke years. My buddy Marcus was blunt when we finally grabbed beers. Dude, you seem different. Relaxed. I was worried about you before. You were always stressing about Brooke, money, plans, whether she'd blow up about something. You weren't living, man. You were managing. He was right. I had been managing her, not living for me. For the first time in years, my savings account was growing. I was sleeping better. Eating better. Actually enjoying work instead of treating it like a bank account for Brooke's lifestyle fantasies. The hiking club led to weekend trips. Those trips led to new friends. Actual friends, people who shared my interests instead of Brooke's endless appetite for appearances. 2 months after the breakup, Tony dropped the bomb. Brooke had been fired. The official reason? Creating a hostile work environment. Translation, Derek drama turned her into a liability. At 27, she packed up and crawled back to her parents' house in suburban Ohio, the same place she'd spent years sneering at. The woman who mocked me for lacking ambition was back in her childhood bedroom, clocking hours at a tiny marketing firm for half her old salary. And yet, she still couldn't let me go. Mike, a mutual friend, ran into me at our old coffee shop. He lowered his voice and said, "Brooke keeps asking about you. If you're dating anyone. If you seem depressed. If you ever say you miss her." I asked what he told her. "The truth," he said. "That you're a completely different person. Happier. More confident. Like someone finally dropped a weight they'd been carrying too long." Mike studied me for a moment, then added, "She really thought you'd fall apart without her, didn't she?" I smiled, shaking my head. She thought I'd wait. That I'd be her backup plan. When I didn't, it shattered the story she told herself about who she was. And for once, I wasn't the one left picking up the pieces. While Brooke was unraveling under the weight of her own choices, I was quietly building a life that finally felt like mine. The noise, the drama, the constant tug-of-war, it was gone. And in that quiet space, something unexpected began to grow. The hiking club, this random weekend experiment, ended up being the doorway to something real. That's where I met Grace. She was a veterinarian with a calm, grounded energy, the kind of person who actually enjoyed quiet Sunday mornings instead of filling every spare second with chaos. On one of our hikes, with sunlight filtering through the trees, I finally opened up about Brooke. Just the basics. Grace shook her head, her ponytail brushing her jacket. "Your ex sounds exhausting. How did you even manage that stress for 3 years?" I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. I thought I was being supportive. Turns out, I was just enabling someone who saw stability as boring instead of valuable. Grace didn't lecture, didn't analyze. She just gave a small shrug and said, "Her loss." And she meant it. While Brooke was adjusting to curfews in her parents' house at 27, relearning what life looked like without anyone funding her designer dreams, I was finally surrounded by people who valued me, not my bank account, not my ability to smooth over meltdowns, but me. Of course, Brooke didn't go quietly. Month 2 brought escalation tactics straight out of a field manual for desperate exes. She started lurking at my office building during lunch, oversized sunglasses and all, like some discount private investigator. Security had me on speed dial, texting warnings so I could slip out back exits like I was dodging paparazzi. Then came the gifts. Expensive coffee from our old spots. Books she thought I'd like. A bottle of wine with a note, for when you're ready to talk like adults. Every single item went straight to donation bins. No responses. No engagement. Silence was louder than anger, and I knew it was driving her mad. The nuclear move? She reached out to my family. My mom called one night, worry lacing her voice. "Honey, Brooke says you've completely changed. She thinks you're having some kind of breakdown. She's really worried about you." I nearly laughed. "Mom, she's not worried about me. She's worried about losing control. She wanted to date other people. I moved on. That's all this is." Mom's tone shifted instantly. "Oh, she made it sound like you were in crisis." "The only crisis," I told her, "is her realizing actions have consequences." Meanwhile, life with Grace was blooming. She was brilliant, funny, and, for the first time in years, I felt like I wasn't performing for approval. We grabbed coffee, wandered through museums, hiked trails, lingered over dinners where we actually talked about books, goals, dreams. She insisted on splitting checks. Had her own hobbies, her own friends. She made me feel interesting just by being myself. The contrast with Brooke? Stark. Night and day. 3 months in, Grace and I made it official. I posted one subtle photo of us at a wine tasting, nothing dramatic, just 2 people smiling, happy. Within hours, Brooke's network went into meltdown mode. Ashley called me in a panic. Brooke saw the post. She's been crying all night, drinking wine, stalking Grace's Instagram. She keeps saying 3 years should have meant more. Ashley paused, then added quietly, "I told her 3 years should have meant more to her before she decided to explore other options." The final manipulation attempt was the darkest yet. A week after the photo, Brooke started posting cryptic, disturbing things on social media. Stuff about feeling abandoned. About not wanting to be here anymore. Friends started calling me, frantic. "Nathan, you need to call her. She says you're the only one who understood her. She's talking about ending things. You can't ignore this. And I'll admit, it hit me hard. That old reflex to swoop in, to fix, to save. But therapy had given me clarity. This was manipulation. A textbook guilt tactic. If she could make her crisis my responsibility, she'd win back control. Instead, I did the right thing. I called her parents. Mrs. Peterson, this is Nathan. I'm worried about Brooke's posts. They sound like she's considering self-harm. I think she needs professional help, not me. Her mother's sigh was heavy. We've been trying to get her into counseling, but she keeps saying she just needs to fix things with you. She doesn't need me, I said firmly. She needs trained professionals. After hanging up, I called the National Suicide Prevention Hotline and reported her posts, giving her address. Within hours, the posts vanished. Later, I heard her parents had taken her in for an evaluation. Mike told me later, she's furious you called her parents instead of reaching out yourself. Says you humiliated her. I shook my head. If saving her life humiliated her, that says everything about her priorities. When I explained it to Grace, she didn't hesitate. She didn't get jealous. Didn't question me. She just said, you did exactly the right thing. Someone threatening self-harm needs help, not a reunion. The fact she's angry about getting help instead of your attention? That tells you everything. 6 months later, word got back to me. Brooke was in therapy, working at a small-town firm, trying to rebuild. And honestly, I hoped she made it. Because I'd realized something vital. Her problems had never been about me. They were about someone who mistook external validation for self-worth and stability for boredom. And me? I'd finally stepped out of that storm and into the kind of life and love that actually fit. 8 months later, Grace and I were at Mike's wedding, our mutual friend who'd finally found the real deal, when I saw Brooke across the reception hall. And instantly, I knew something was off. She was dressed to kill, in a gown that probably cost more than her current paycheck, hanging off the arm of some poor guy in a rental tux who looked like he'd wandered in from the wrong event. But the real giveaway? The massive engagement ring she kept flashing like it was a beacon, holding her hand just so under the lights, laughing too loud at jokes that weren't funny. Grace noticed me stiffen. That's her, isn't it? Yeah, I murmured. And she's putting on quite a show. We watched as Brooke worked the room, practically dragging this guy, Brad, along as she introduced him as her successful entrepreneur fiancé. The problem? Every time someone asked him a basic question about his business, he fumbled like a kid bluffing through a pop quiz. The whole thing reeked of desperation dressed up as triumph. When Brooke spotted me, her smile faltered for just a heartbeat before she plastered on an even brighter one, whispering something to Brad and pointing in our direction. A moment later, they were marching toward us like soldiers on a mission. Nathan. Her voice was pitched perfectly for nearby tables to overhear. I was hoping you'd be here. I want you to meet Brad, my fiancé. Brad extended a clammy hand and delivered his line like it had been rehearsed. Great to finally meet you, Nathan. Brooks told me so much. The guy looked like he was begging for someone to rescue him. Grace, cool as ever, smiled warmly. Congratulations on your engagement. When's the wedding? Brooke blinked, her mask slipping just a little. Oh, we're still planning. Brad's just so spontaneous, aren't you, honey? Brad nodded like he was reading cue cards. Yeah, totally spontaneous. That's me. 10 minutes later, Brad had already excused himself for his third bathroom break, and Brooke cornered me by the bar while Grace was chatting with friends. Her voice cracked as the performance shattered. Nathan, please. I need to talk to you privately. I don't think that's appropriate, I said flatly. 5 minutes. Please. I'm begging you. Against my better judgment, I followed her to a quiet corner. The second we were alone, she ripped off the ring and started sobbing. It's all fake. Brad's an actor I hired off Craigslist. I thought if you saw me with someone else, someone successful, you'd realize what you lost. Her words tumbled out between gasps. I've been watching your life through other people, seeing you with Grace, and I can't stand it. You were supposed to miss me. You were supposed to realize we were special. I looked her dead in the eye. What we had was me giving you everything while you shopped for better options. When that failed, you expected me to sit here waiting. I'm not your safety net, Brooke. She grabbed my arm, mascara streaking down her face. Derek used me. The job was a nightmare. I lost everything chasing a fantasy. I made a mistake. I was young and stupid. I threw away the best thing that ever happened to me. I pulled my arm free. I'm sorry you went through that. But it doesn't change what you did to me. 3 years mattered, until you decided they didn't. You don't get to come back now that everything else fell apart. Just then, Grace appeared beside me, handing me a glass of water like she'd known exactly what I needed. She turned to Brooke with calm, steady kindness. You must be Brooke. I'm Grace. Nathan's told me about your history. Brooke blinked, waiting for claws, for jealousy. But Grace stayed perfectly composed, standing tall beside me. No competition. No insecurity. Just quiet strength. Brooke's shoulders sagged. She slipped the ring back on and whispered, I should go. Brad's probably wondering where I am. As she walked away, Grace looked at me with something that felt like pride. That was handled perfectly. You were kind, but firm. Sympathetic, but you held your boundary. Honestly? I'm impressed. Instead of jealousy, she offered admiration. The difference between someone secure in themselves versus someone who thrived on validation had never been clearer. We spent the rest of the night dancing, laughing, celebrating Mike's actual happiness with someone who truly loved him. And for the first time, I realized I wasn't haunted by what I'd lost. I was grateful for what I'd found. 6 months later, Grace and I got engaged for real. No performances. No backup plans. Just two people choosing each other without hesitation. The final chapter of Brooke's saga came as a text from an unknown number. Grace saw it first while we were planning our honeymoon. It read, "I heard you're engaged. You're making a mistake. She'll never love you the way I did." Grace showed me the screenshot, chuckling. "I deleted it before you saw it. You don't need that kind of energy." And she was right. Brooke was still trying to wedge herself into a story that had moved on without her. Meanwhile, I was living the life I'd always wanted, with someone who didn't see me as a placeholder, but as a partner. Someone who didn't need me to prove my worth, but chose me fully, the same way I chose her. That's what love actually looks like when two people show up, completely, and without reservation.